and welcome back to FiddleUP. I'm Emerald Ray, and in this video we're going to be talking about basic songwriting. So if you've watched my video on tune writing, I have a video called Tune Writing 101. You should check that out too if you're interested in writing tunes. This video is going to have a very similar structure to that. So you're thinking of writing tunes and songs, I would check both of them out. And so we're going to be talking about how to get into writing songs. And so the first thing you want to do is consider what your method is. And we talked about this in the tune writing one as well, but it's even more important for your songwriting. And you might actually have two different methods for doing this for reasons that we will go into. So your first method is your pen and paper method if you want to write everything down on a piece of paper. And of course, this is going to be a lot more essential for when you're doing lyric writing for sure, but maybe not. Maybe you're somebody who remembers the lyrics really well and you don't have to. I generally need to see my lyrics, even if I am writing a tune and I don't need to see the tune. I can just use a recording device for that. So, or you could use a recording device, or you could just use your ear, your instrument. Have your if you're writing, on guitar, great. If you're writing on fiddle, even better. Of course, I'm gonna prefer that method personally. But yeah, so you want something to kind of hold down the harmonic structure while you're, breezing through some ideas. So having some kind of accompaniment thing, and then having your ways to record, whether that's writing it down or using a recording device to record things piece by piece. So you're going to have to capture the melody of the song, the harmony, which is going to be the chords that go on underneath, the lyrics, and then also if you're, planning on playing this out, some kind of accompaniment thing, whether you're playing that on your own or you're going to have somebody accompany you, you're going to want to record some different ideas of what you want that person to do or what you want to do with the accompaniment, because the accompaniment actually figures into the song pretty significantly. Sometimes it can be a really big part of the song. It doesn't always have to be. Sometimes a song can stand on its own. But in general, if you're planning on performing this out on your own and you're going to accompany yourself, generally you're thinking about what the accompaniment is going to like as you're going along. It's just sort of a natural part of the creative process of coming up with this stuff. So the next thing you're going to want to be thinking about is, what is your big idea? What is your idea for this song that you're going to write? Now, you don't have to start with an idea, but generally ideas are something that just come to you anyway and tend to be the impetus for writing the song. And so in my experience, the ideas come at very inconvenient times when I'm doing something else and not expecting a sudden song idea to pop into my head. So I have to run to some kind of capturing station to get my tune in there. So you want to be prepared for when an idea strikes you, because it generally happens when you're driving in the car, when you're out somewhere, when you're listening to a new record that you're really inspired by, you're doing something else, you're paying the bills, you're vacuuming, whatever. For me, like, the ideas always come when I'm doing something else that I really need to get done at that moment. Sometimes when I'm teaching a lesson or something and I'm like, no. So you want to be prepared to capture the ideas that come in and be kind of ruthless about saying, like, wait a minute, I've got an idea, I need to put this down, and going ahead and having the discipline to get that all captured, because you're generally not going to be able to sit down and write a song at the moment that you have the idea. I wish that would happen. So when you've captured your one idea or many ideas, or you've been chewing over this idea for a while, then you're going to want to decide, what is the structure of this song? Now with tunes, you would have, like, is it an A part, B part, C part tune? Is it a jig? Is it a reel or whatever? But with songs, it's a little bit different. You have a little bit more involved in what's going on. So you're going to want to decide, based on your idea, or if you just decide to write something without having an idea, What's the vibe of this song? What is what's the meter? Is it a waltz time? Is it in more 2/4? What's the general framework that we're working in here? What key is it in? That's a good place to start, especially if you're finding a good key that's good for your voice and what's good for your voice. Start there, and then you can always move it around later if you need to. So just decide on the general harmonic structure. Are you going to have a certain chord progression? Are you going to have this, that, and the other, and try to figure out where that's going to go? You can also decide what type of song this is going to be. Is this going to be more of a pop song format, or is this going to be more of an old school traditional ballad thing where it's just a zillion stanzas one after another? Or is it going to be a pop song with a bridge? Is it going to be, any old thing? Is it going to be like an old time song with a whole bunch of nonsensical lyrics in it? Is it going to have a story? What is the story? That's always a good place to start. Starting, a lot of times songs start from having an idea of a story too, and that counts as an idea for a song. I had a nice, say you have an idea of a song about somebody who goes off into the woods and something happens. I don't know, whatever, just whatever's gonna start your idea. And you don't have to have the story finished by the time you write the song. Sometimes the story will just happen on its own, and you want to be able to inspire that creative process and allow yourself to leave some doors open. You can always change the structure of your song later. And songs are so complicated that it's very common for songwriters to rehash songs multiple times, to sit there and write 19 verses and decide which one the best ones are going to be. Like there's some serious process involved with songwriting. So just getting started with it, I would just pick a structure, maybe pick the structure of your favorite song or something that you are really inspired by, and try to fit what you're writing into that. And then if you need to make some changes, make some changes. It's all good. So then after that, we're, getting into craft zone. So, what takes a song from idea to completion is the craft part. It's taking the hammer and chisel out and just hacking away at it for quite some time. And songwriting, has its, can sometimes have its own way of doing things. It's kind of a mystery. So you will develop over time what your process is. If you like to just write a few succinct verses, that's great. If you want to write a whole bunch of verses and pick your favorites, that's great. If you want to try lots of things out, if you want to try to write 4 different bridges and see which is your favorite bridge, like people get all into, how to do these things. Another really great exercise that's used very commonly in songwriting, that was put out in a book called Writing Better Songs by Pat Pattinson, and that is called object writing. And I'm sure he didn't invent this concept. It's a very kind of quintessential songwriting exercise. It's great in poetry as well. I'm sure Pat, like his book is amazing. He came up with a great way to go through this whole process for sure. But that idea of object writing is so intrinsic to songwriting, and how it works is you pick an object. Say you pick a book or a cup of tea, or just any sort of, or a car, or any sort of mundane object, and you spend 10 minutes sitting and writing about that one object. And you just see what you can pull out of yourself, just see, you can write about experiences you had with that object. You can write a whole story around that object. The object can be a person, which is very good for songwriting. You want to get into the metaphor there, which we're going to talk about in a second. And so that's a really good way to just get yourself in 10 minutes, like a whole page worth of fodder for using for your story and for your verse. So object writing is a great thing to do. A lot of people do their object writing first thing in the morning, like while they're having their morning cup of coffee. They will give themselves a prompt and do a 10-minute writing thing, and then you can keep those, and if it decides to turn into a song later, then it can do that. So let's talk about metaphor a little bit. So generally in songs, you want to have some kind of metaphor, and you don't have to have metaphor, but metaphor is really the most powerful part of songwriting. It's where the song transforms into something beyond itself. You know, you can write a whole song based off of, you know, an object, you know, just a thing, a coffee cup, a bottle of whiskey, whatever, can start with that. But then the song is about so much more than that one object. You know, it could be, you know, a bell, a fire, a plant, a snake plant, you know, whatever, whatever it is. But that use of metaphor is what really makes a song powerful and really what makes a song, you know, stick out and seem like it's so much more than it is. So definitely be thinking of metaphor when you're writing, and don't be too literal. At least I don't like to be. So last but not least, you want to come up with a way to record your song in its entirety, because like I said in the tune writing video, I have done this before where I've, you know, finally put my pen down and completed the whole song, and then I forgot to sort of sit down and record it in its entirety, and then bits of it just like fell out of my ear. And I had to come back later and come up with new things, and it just didn't feel the same, you know? So when you've gotten to that point where you've worked on it and you've gotten to the end, you know, you can kind of feel when you've gotten to the end and everything goes, you know, you've got this thing that's now completed. What you're going to want to do is sit down and record the whole thing in its entirety. And it doesn't have to be a great recording. You just want to make sure you get it down. You want to make sure your lyrics are written out. You want to make sure that you get a clean version of what feels like the end. So I know that's a weird thing to remind you of, but it's because I've done that a million times and thought, yeah, I'll remember it later. You won't. I won't, you won't. We won't. So that is all I have to say for this Songwriting 101 video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please ask me questions if you'd like to know more about this particular topic, and I will see you in the next video.